Wonderful day, wonderful day, wonderful day. This is your neighborhood sensei Fouché, telling all y'all to stay woke and relax. Relax and take notes. I get a lot of acknowledgement most days. I could think specifically twice today on my high level energy, my zest for life. You know what I'm saying? And in one specific reference, Buddy was like, yo, man, I love your energy, man. You just bring a spark and an excitement, upon presence. Soon as we see you, like, our energy level just goes up. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wish that I could be as energetic as you. How do you do that? Like, how do you stay in that zone? And I told the young gentleman, I said, look, I came to a place in my life to where I chose to be distracted. I chose to be frustrated. I chose to dismiss and want to forget what usually was going on at the moment. I didn't want to deal with the moment. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't built or trained or learned in the understanding of pace, of peace. And through that lack of awareness and understanding presence, I fell into a lot of despair and desperation. And through a lot of that despair and desperation was frustration. And through that frustration came to be immediates of extended and monumental losses. And basically it's like, hitting rock bottom. And I told the young sir, I told myself at some point of honesty that I never, ever, ever wanted to even think or be in that place of feeling and misunderstanding and incompleteness again. It's basically saying, I looked the man in the mirror and I was like, yo, we need to do something about this. This is not gonna be who we are ever again. And I went through this day feeling physically exhausted. You know what I'm saying? Doing some more intricate house detail a couple of days ago. And, being an older dude is not a shame, but contorting your body and what I described in laughter to many interactions today, I told them I found interesting ways to practice a different form of the game Twister. I'm on the floor, you know, um, reorganizing wires after pulling um, items within this room. We're in this room, and you see the structure behind us. There's a corner, and or behind what's this screen is a corner, and I was putting up a corner shelf, and this room, has a nice, comfortable square space, but without stripping this thing completely, I moved specific things out in order to create enough room to work. But if it was a completely empty space, it would have been totally different. But, you know, having limited assistance at the moment and wanting to complete um, a certain to a certain degree, a specific in this project, I wanted to just move certain things so that way I wouldn't overwhelm myself knowing that I wasn't able to have the proper assisted help for me not to overwhelm the moment. And I didn't confuse myself. So, I wasn't physically, I wasn't feeling like top freshness, but I told these two young ladies today that mentally I am so locked in that physically I'm going to be okay. Like I'm going to manage, my physical discomfort. That's going to be easy because mentally I'm not frustrated, and that's not why my physical awareness has came to be. You know what I'm saying? My physical wearing down has nothing to do with being, mentally, psychologically, or emotionally exhausted. It has nothing to do with that. So it's easy for me to still be excited despite my physical discomfort due to um, uh, a great accomplishment. Like in me being worn down, I felt greatly accomplished. And even my lady was mentioning that in our conversation, because I was relating to her how, I felt physically drained, but, I started my day off, of course, and ready to embrace people in a very excited mood, you know what I'm saying? And the thing that she told me in regards right after to me stating, yesterday's or, the other day's events is the same thing I just told you. And I already thought this in my mind before she said it, you know what I'm saying? Because I was already locked in, but she just, affirmed, how I move and why. But she was like, well, the great thing is that, you accomplished this specific thing or goal that you wanted to put into motion and have a form of completeness. She was talking about this a couple of months ago, and I always tell my family, like, there's always moments for a moment. And if you don't overwhelm specific moments, then you could pace yourself into accomplishing a lot of things in a lot of to come moments. And I hope I didn't confuse you. And simply put, is what we're about to get back into with the book, The Power of Now. Staying present. always living in the present. And we've been covering a lot about, creating time by past, future, living in the past and hoping for a future that isn't there yet, while ignoring and neglecting the now. So in this opening monologue, just to kind of put it, full circle and completion, these many moments are simply just always staying present into the now. If there is a confrontation, and confrontation isn't always bad, it just depends on what your mind state is going into it and what you're looking to accomplish. You know what I'm saying? But when you go into having a lot of these, moments, are you going to face these moments and have these confrontations, as I was starting to state? Are you willing to have these conversations, these tough conversations, or these necessary conversations? Because it could be easy as what they would say, easy as pie. You know what I'm saying? But are you willing to actually engage into having the conversation, into completing a feeling in a moment to where it doesn't carry over into other moments? In a conversation with my lady this morning, I was telling her the thing about time that really has people tripping, or they will trip or be tripped, is when you initiate or are part of a moment and the moment isn't fulfilled to a certain completeness, and it is neglected or ignored in not being fully completed. The longer you delay the full completion of that, if it holds a great relevance into your everyday, the closer it is into your everyday, the more relevant it is. But if you don't have that complete at its soonest moment, it is going to linger into moments to come. And the moment, and depending on how long you ignore it, you create a buildup, or what I label as the volcano effect. And you continue to build this volcano until it gets so enormous in the amount of volcanic buildup that it explodes. And then it creates a catastrophic following of severity for an extended and long period of time, on the back end. You know what I'm saying? The residual damage is a term I use. The residual damage is going to be extreme. You know what I'm saying? And that is in relation, again, to not handling and being in those moments. You could eliminate frustrations just by dealing with that feeling and that confrontation completely in that moment. And it doesn't specifically mean in regards to the opposite person in discussion or confrontation, but in the information after the exchange. After you have an exchange, knowing the information, or the exchange of the moment, through your processing, you should understand what it is and what you choose to deal with, or how you choose to move on or move forward from that moment. So once you're mentally in awareness, focus, and in completion, psychologically and emotionally, in knowing what that moment represents and how you're going to move forward, understanding that moment, that's how you eliminate frustration and continue to be in fluidity and what we would label as that seeking of freedom. You know, freedom is not being locked into long term into past moments. You know what I'm saying? That's how you imprison your life, is by continuing to lock yourself in to not moving on from the past moments and wishing for a future moment that can't happen until you complete your current moment. So that's going to lead us into our reading aspect. Chapter 5, the state of presence. And presence is the moments, the now. The building up in the pre-conversation or the monologue into the heart of our conversation foundation. It's not what you think it is. And again, we're in chapter 5, the state of presence. Understanding presence is being present. And like I said, I just opened up the monologue and then I'm just reading, right into what we were talking about, because this is what I believe and how I live. So it's easy to explain in short conversation or extended conversation and just use these as references. And let me show the book before I move forward. The Power of Now, A Guide to Spiritual Enlightenment by Eckhart Tolle. And the author's name, for those who aren't looking at the screen, first name Eckhart, last name Tolle. The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle, A Guide to Spiritual Enlightenment. And this is just a more Adlerian psychological way and aspect of translating and understanding spiritual keys or tools of information. You know what I'm saying? When you have these novels or these passages, or what would we call these books of the Bible, these scriptures, you know what I'm saying? Like how you translate these scriptures. And if these scriptures aren't translated properly, you know what I'm saying, you don't understand what this enlightenment is, or how to be empowering in understanding these moments or being in presence. So let's continue. As long as you are in a state of intense presence, you are free of thought. You're free of worry, overthinking. You know what I'm saying? When you are intensely in this state of being, like you ain't even, tripping on worry. Like that's just, a very, minuscule moment of displeasure. The instant your conscious attention sinks below a certain level, thought rushes in. you are back in time. Once you get this worry back in you, like you over there trapped again, you know what I'm saying? Like a moving zombie. You know what I'm saying? To stay present in everyday life, it helps to be deeply rooted within yourself. I swear I was just stating that at the beginning before the reading. It means to inhabit your body fully. Body awareness keeps you present. It anchors you in the now. Presence is needed to become aware of beauty. Man, you have to go back to the beginning of this episode, because I was just talking about this. You know what I'm saying? Looking at someone smiling, looking at a family having a meal in a restaurant and being engaging and happy. You know what I'm saying? Looking at an elderly man pace himself in the aspect and accomplishment of moving and walking, and once walking outside, taking a very deep, happy breath, and on the back end of that, utilizing the physical expression of happiness, having a huge smile on their face. And if you would have embraced that moment from the beginning of it happening all the way to the end of him exhaling that breath, that is a short extended moment in observing the appreciation of being. Whenever and wherever there is beauty, this inner essence shines through somehow. It only reveals itself to you when you are present. I was saying earlier how much pain I was in physically, but mentally I was so locked in that I was able to have many happy exchanges in many moments with many people today. And that's every day, not just today. I have so many great moments that I can't even remember them. And I forget the bad things, and if they do happen, I spend most of my day laughing about it, and then remembering on top of that there were so many happy moments within, before, and after that goofy moment. You know what I'm saying? I don't hold on to it because, then I start remembering the days of detrimental coping mechanisms. You know what I'm saying? And I ain't trying to go back. You can't go back, Bob. You're not a looper. When you experienced those moments of presence, you likely didn't realize that you were briefly in a state of no mind. This is because the gap between that state and the influx of thought was too narrow. You were so congested with being stressed or frustrated that you couldn't create the window of clarity into seeing the many beautiful things around that specific pinpoint of ugliness. You expanded that ugliness to carry a greater radiance that really doesn't exist, because it should be more looked at in a minimal aspect to the many other things that are around that. You know what I'm saying? But if you so locked into that specific observation, then that's all you're going to see. You ain't going to see all the other things beyond that don't represent what that is. That gives you some form of dis-ease or displeasure. Because of the narrowness of that gap and a lack of vigilance, assertiveness, to use another word to be synonymous of that word, and alertness on your part, you were probably unable to see the fundamental difference between the perception, the thought awareness of beauty, and the naming and interpreting of it as thought. I just said that. Anyway, moving on. The wider the time gap between perception and thought, the more depth there is to you as a human being, which is to say, the more conscious you are. And I was about to pause and say that of which it just stated on the back end of that sentence. The more that you lose the idea and the feeling of worry, the more open your processing and your awareness and observations are to the things around that cause that worry, that displeasure, that dis-ease. And when you do that, the more conscious, the more focused, the more centered you are into all the aspects of beauty, all the aspects of positivity, all the aspects of love. Many people are so imprisoned in their minds that the beauty of nature does not really exist for them. Because we live in such a mind-dominated culture, most modern art, architecture, music, and literature are devoid of beauty and inner essence. And I have many conversations as to why I stopped listening to a lot of music that includes lyrics or words. And in my explanation of it, a lot of these people are lying, either about who they are, what they have, or how they really live as far as who they really are. A lot of the information is destructive into your higher awareness in being in full understanding and control of your emotions and your psychological development. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to hear things about, pity and sorrow and greed and lust, worshiping, using objects of idolizing objects, idolizing things and other people, valuing other people before valuing yourself, valuing these people that that speak on engaging into these idol worshiping and referencing. You know what I'm saying? Like, I quit all that because society and the attitude is infused in a lot of the what we would call creative expressions. So if most people are based in miserable processing, or they use different tools to express their misery as a coping mechanism. You know what I'm saying? So if you in, let's say, someone that creates paintings or whatever, and these paintings are considered like dark or devoid, you know, the reason why you do this is because you feel incomplete. There's a you lack completeness in your presence, and this is how you express yourself, is through some negative image, something more of a lower relation to a higher state of being that you're not in. The reason is that people who create those things cannot, even for a moment, free themselves from their mind. And I just continued reading from the book after ad-libbing, and they basically just said what I just said prior to that. Free themselves from their mind again. The reason is that people who create, let's go all the way back. Because we live in such a mind-dominated culture, most people, or most modern art, architecture, music, and literature are devoid of beauty, of inner essence. The reason is that the people who create those things cannot, even for a moment, free themselves from their mind. So they are never in touch with that place within where true creativity and beauty arise. Again, so they are never in touch with that place within where true creativity and beauty arise. When you become conscious of being, what is really happening is that being becomes conscious of itself. Once you are enlightened or finally free of worry and stress and misery, your light builds on top of the light and becomes more radiant and more radiated the more you are aware and being present and being happy. Realizing pure consciousness. When you become conscious of being, what is really happening is that being becomes conscious itself, of itself. When being becomes conscious of itself, that's presence. Since being, consciousness, and life are synonymous, we could say that presence means consciousness, becoming conscious of itself, or life attaining self-consciousness. We're going to get, because when they read these scriptures from the Bible, they're not giving you the true explanation and definition into the enlightenment and how you should be guided to that enlightenment, and how that's referenced in the scriptures, like how they translate it. That's how you still lost. So let's move forward. In the Bible, God declares, I am the Alpha and the Omega, and I am the living one. You are the dark, the deepest of the dark, and the highest of the light. You are two different sides of one. In the timeless realm where God dwells, which is also your home inside of you, the beginning and the end, the Alpha and the Omega are one, and the essence of everything that ever has been and ever will be is eternally present in an unmanifested state of oneness and perfection. It is inside of you, and until you identify with that Alpha in you as opposed to the Omega in you, then you are not in full completeness back to your original point of energy. So let me go back because I caught myself in the middle of the sentence. The beginning and the end, the Alpha and the Omega are one, and the essence of everything that has been and ever will be is eternally present in an unmanifested state of oneness and perfection, totally beyond anything the human mind can ever imagine or comprehend. In our world of seemingly separate forms, however, timeless perfection is an inconceivable concept. When you are trapped in worry and frustration and worldly things like this enlightenment, this God state seems impossible to have. And that's because that fear part of you is in complete control of your thoughts, your unconscious movements, your unconscious being or living. Because if you were being, you would be deeper. So that's why I always say or try to differentiate being and living. Like those are two different things. Due to our limited perception, that's how you wind up not realizing your full potential, is because you are limited in your thinking and how you are told to process, to transmute what was translated. You know, how you absorbed the wrong defining of specific key information. It's like, you got a product, you didn't read the instructions properly, and then it was built wrong. You know what I'm saying? And now you're using it in an aspect of it not being right. You know what I'm saying? So then it's not working right. But you just satisfied with the fact that it's working. Not the fact that it should be working in its full completeness, but you just satisfied with it just running. You know what I'm saying? But not working in its full aspect of how it should. And that's how you live in your life and thinking about your life. Everything that exists has being, has God essence, has some degree of consciousness. Everything is alive. The sun, the earth, plants, animals, humans, all are expressions of consciousness in varying degrees. Consciousness manifesting as form. The world arises the minute that you start seeing things, or you become resurrected from being dead. The world arises when consciousness takes on shapes and forms, thought forms, and material forms. When your enlightenment takes over your peripheral vision, then you start to see things deeper. You know what I'm saying? Not generically and superficially, but more internally, deeper. The ancient seers of India asked themselves, they saw the world as Leela, a kind of divine game that God is playing. The individual life forms are obviously not very important in this game. In the sea, most life forms don't survive for more than a few minutes after being born. But their time structure is different because their life cycle is not the same as humans. So what we consider a few minutes could be a longer existence of time in that form of being. The human form turns to dust pretty quickly too. And when it is gone, it is as if it had never been. Consciousness takes on the disguise of forms until they reach such complexity that it completely loses itself in them. In present-day humans, consciousness is completely identified with its disguise. It only knows itself as form and therefore lives in fear of the annihilation of its physical or psychological form. This is the egoic mind, and this is where considerable dysfunction sets in. It now looks as if something had gone very wrong where along the line of evolution. Something's gone very wrong somewhere along the line of evolution. But even this part of Leela, the divine game. Finally, the pressure of suffering created by the apparent dysfunction forces consciousness to disidentify from form and awakens it from its dream form. This is called the resurrection. The resurrection of the Christ, the Christos. The inner shining crystal deep within you. Your third eye, your first eye. I don't even call it the third, I call it your first eye. But it's been suppressed. It regains self-consciousness, but it is at a far deeper level than when it lost it. So basically, in this back end of the conversation, it regains self-consciousness, but it is at a far deeper level than when it is lost. You know what I'm saying? You own something, you lose it, and then you're able to regain the thing that you lost. Once you gain it again, then you value it a whole lot more. They say you don't know love until you lost love, right? Until you truly are so lost and become so disgusted into the processing of being so lost, until you come to that deep level of sickness, of no longer wanting to be in that place, like you're going to continue to be stuck there. You will not be resurrected. You will not be reborn. You know what I'm saying? You will not be deeper. Though through you, correct myself, through you, consciousness is awakening out of its dream of identification with form and withdrawing from form. That's basically what I told you what I did. That's what I figured out. Like, I had to free myself from this conditioning, from these worldly thoughts, these worldly connections, this worldly psychology. Let me see. I think I'm going to stop right there. Because we have so much more to kind of go. And maybe I should. Yeah, let's read on just a little bit more. We're going to fill up this time. When consciousness frees itself from its identification with physical and mental forms, it becomes what we call pure or enlightened consciousness or presence. Most humans are still in the grip of the egoic mode of consciousness, identified with their mind and run by their mind. The collective egoic mind is the most dangerously insane and destructive entity ever to inhabit this planet. Already, for most humans, the only respite they find from their own minds is to occasionally revert to a level of consciousness below thought. You go into your evil living state. Everyone does that every night during sleep. All right, let me correct myself. Or already for most humans, the only respite they find from their own minds is to occasionally revert to a level of consciousness below thought. So basically, like when you in sleep, you not really focused on worry or frustration, like you dormant. You know what I'm saying? And you do that every night when you are just what we would call sleeping. But this also happens to some extent through sex, alcohol, and other drugs that suppress excessive mind activity. And that is coping mechanisms, negative coping mechanisms. While individual users may get some relief from the daily torture inflicted on them by their minds, they are prevented from generating enough conscious presence to rise above thought and so find true liberation. That's just a temporary fix. You know what I'm saying? You're not having long sustainability because those are just band-aids instead of actually putting a true deep surgery, a surgical application into your healing process. There is an Eastern saying, the teacher and the taught together create the teaching. In any case, the words in themselves are not important. They are not the truth. They only point to it. No different than me talking to you. I'm not going to fix you. I only give you the information for you to understand and how to fix yourself. Silence is an even more potent carrier of presence. Stop talking. You know what I'm saying? Stop reacting and start being aware and observing. Listening to silence immediately creates stillness inside you. Only the stillness in you can perceive the silence outside. And then we're going to stop right there. And that's where it goes into meditation. Or I would speak about meditation and having deep breaths and centering your thoughts and going into the psychological profiling of yourself and knowing that you're miserable. And if you really don't want to be miserable and you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, then you're finally going to acknowledge something different and direct yourself in a true forwardness in the direction of change. And even though tomorrow's another day, and that's into me continuing into sharing this information after this episode and our conversation now in this moment, like when you finish listening to this in its completion, on the back end of this, when you process all this information and what I just broke down, like, what are you going to say to yourself about what you just heard, about what I read to you, about what I shared to you? Hold on to that. And I look forward, of course, to the next moment and sharing more into understanding being present. You know what I'm saying? We in chapter 5 right now. You know what I'm saying? And we're going to end it right there because this is a lot of information. You know what I'm saying? And we're going to continue every single day to just share because I'm just sharing. You know what I'm saying? And my monologues is what I understand in living in the being aspect of what I'm sharing. You know what I'm saying? And this is just referencing my monologues. Everything that I'm telling you at the beginning, on the back end, I'm just reading it through different documented and psychologists. You know, different psychologists holding degrees. You know what I'm saying? I'm just listening to smart people. That's what I tell everybody. Like, I stopped dealing with generic dumb and I started following and listening to smart things instead of just anything. So hold on to that. This is your neighborhood Sensei Fouché, telling all y'all to stay woke, and relax. Relax. Process what we just did. Take notes. Enjoy your moment. Until our next moment, be smooth. 1.